This episode of the Beauté by AVIC podcast is brought to you by the Australasian Academy of Cosmetic Dermal Science. Hello and welcome to the Beauté by AVIC podcast, your online support community for the aesthetic and beauty industry. Here, we are strengthening and unifying the industry through representation, innovation, and education. This is a platform created and dedicated to the aesthetic and beauty industry, valuing unity and advancement. We serve to represent, support, and inspire you by connecting you with industry experts, expanding your knowledge through educational pieces, and bringing you the latest industry news. This is Beauté by AVIC. I'm your host, Stephanie Miller, and today's guest is Linda Sim from the Australasian Academy of Cosmetic Dermal Science, AACDS. Linda Sim is the CEO and co-owner of the Australasian Academy of Cosmetic Dermal Science. Linda has extensive experience as a dermal therapist and business manager. She holds a Cert IV in Training and Assessment, Advanced Diploma of Cosmetic Dermal Science, Diploma of Cosmetic Chemistry, and an MBA. Linda was selected from over 4,000 Western Australian women as a finalist in the 2019 WA Telstra Business Women's Award in the medium-sized business category. Linda currently oversees AACDS, the largest provider of dermal therapy and cosmetic nursing education in Australia. Here to discuss the importance of maintaining standards in education from the Australasian Academy of Cosmetic Dermal Science, today we welcome Linda Sim. Hello and welcome to the podcast, Linda.
Thanks, Steph. It's lovely to be here.
Linda, it's always beautiful to talk to you. Today, we're talking about one of my favourite topics, and I know it's one of your favourite topics as well, and that's education. But before we start, we always begin our podcast with the very same question. Linda, tell us about yourself and how you came to be in the beauty and aesthetic industry.
Sure, Steph. That's an easy one. I've been here for quite a long time. I started as a beauty therapist way back in the day when it was just beauty, not dermal therapies or aesthetics. I then actually started up my own practice with cosmetic doctors, and that was in New Zealand. Cosmetic doctors in New Zealand were called appearance medicine doctors. So I had these doctors in my own clinic, and I started to expand my scope of practice to include things like lasers, peels, clinical microdermabrasion, and introduced injectables procedures into my clinic. When I decided to move to Australia in 2000, I actually came across a course here in Perth that April Jorgensen had developed called the Advanced Diploma of Cosmetic Dermal Science. Now, this prompted me to formalise my knowledge and skills into a qualification, and that's when I first studied to become a dermal therapist. Wasn't long after that April decided that I'd be a good addition to her team, and I joined her in Australasian Academy of Cosmetic Dermal Science. From there, we developed our own registered training organisation. Originally, it was Curtin University we're under, but we found that quite restrictive and we couldn't really expand our scope as well as we wanted to. So that's how we came to develop the RTO. From there, we added more courses to our scope in cosmetic nursing and graduate diplomas in dermal therapies. And the rest of it's history, really. We've been around since 2004.
And an incredible history that is. You must really enjoy working with April as well. You two are a great team.
Oh, we are. Yeah, we are. We complement each other, I think.
Absolutely. Look, the first point that I'd really love to explore with you today is about education. Why is it so important, Linda, especially in a largely unregulated or really inconsistently regulated industry?
I think it's got to come down to standards, and I know you'll agree with me, Steph. If there's no formal education, then it's anyone's well, it's anyone's thing. And safety is affected if it's anyone's thing. And, April and I have always been about raising the standards and safety in the industry. And it's a testament to those who do take up the education, because you don't have to. As we've both said, it's unregulated. You don't have to become a dermal therapist or a cosmetic nurse through a formal pathway. But if you do, you are the leaders in the industry, and you are the ones that are making the contribution to safety and standards.
It's so important that you've just called out those that do choose to enter into a qualification, because you don't need to, but the fact that you do actually increases and elevates the standards industry-wide. And so what you're doing is you're contributing to a better, safer industry. So yes, commendations to everybody who does do that. At AACDS, you offer dermal therapy. Can you tell us what sorts of subjects you would study or cover in a dermal therapy qualification, and why those subjects are important?
Sure can. Look, we cover everything from laser safety, epidermal resurfacing, dermatology, dermoscopy. Those types of things are really important in understanding what you're looking at in the skin. Any skin lesions that might be a bit suspicious as a dermal therapist, you need to be able to refer those on to a doctor. Cosmeceuticals, for example, when you've brought someone to your clinic and you've given them a really good treatment plan, it's really important that they follow up at home with the cosmeceuticals, so they learn about the specific ingredients in a cosmeceutical. We don't teach them about a brand as such. We're quite non-biased and generic in that manner. Other things we teach them would be cosmetic science, surgical and non-surgical. That's another important one. So a dermal therapist can refer on to a doctor or a cosmetic nurse, as a lot of the things they may think are best for their client may be outside of their scope. A good example of that is that you may bring someone in who has volume loss, and as a dermal therapist you're a little bit restricted in what you can do for volume loss, but as a cosmetic nurse, filler is the ideal solution for that type of problem. So it's really important you have that all-rounded knowledge of all of those different aspects, so that you can do the best possible treatment for your client.
And that's wonderful. And you also offer cosmetic nursing. What subjects does that involve?
Now, this is an interesting one, because we often get candidates come to us and they want to learn how to do wrinkle relaxer, which is your Botox and your Siemens and your other brands, and they also want to do filler. What they don't tend to understand is that you need to look at the patient holistically, and you need to look at, what's their skin color like, what's their skin texture like. Is it just volume loss? Is it just wrinkles that need to be addressed? So we teach them most of the same subjects we would teach a dermal therapist, so that they can treat the whole patient and give them the best possible treatment outcome. In addition to that, they'll also learn about wrinkle relaxers and dermal fillers, so they can take it that step further. They also have to know what's outside of their scope and what would need to be referred on to a cosmetic doctor. So, it may be that the best option for a patient could be, a blepharoplasty, which is outside of their scope. So once they understand all the different types of treatments and procedures that are available out there, then they can refer on, and they can work holistically in that whole team of professionals.
I think it's really important to understand that our industry comprises of so many various sectors in beauty and aesthetic, and a lot of those areas actually, they intertwine and they work symbiotically with each other. So really it is important to understand the other fields of this discipline, which is under the umbrella of beauty and aesthetics, so that you can offer that holistic treatment to the client, which sometimes, you're right, is out of the scope of your scope of practice. So it's so important that we all work together. I know that you believe that short courses alone are not really enough to safely practice either in dermal or the cosmetic nursing space. Please share with us, Linda, why you're of this opinion that they're not enough as standalone courses.
Well, I think, both cosmetic nursing and dermal therapies are serious treatments. Things can go wrong. So clearly, to mitigate your risk and do the best possible procedures, you will need a solid knowledge. So that underpinning knowledge reduces your risk enormously, and it also widens your scope of treatment. Short courses don't give you enough education to be I would consider a safe injector or dermal therapist doing laser. There's a lot of knowledge. In fact, a lot of the students that come to us first off when they're enrolling in a course, they will think it's going to be easy. And I must admit, we lose a few along the way when they find out how comprehensive the knowledge is that they require to work in this industry.
I often hear you talking about a holistic approach to studying or learning in the context of education. What do you consider to be a holistic approach? What does that entail?
That entails all of the subjects we talked about previously, learning about the anatomy and physiology of the skin, learning about dermatology, learning about laser and light and how it affects the skin, learning about surgical and non-surgical procedures. As I said, you've got to be able to develop a successful treatment plan that encompasses everything the client may need. The client's basically going on a journey with you. So as a dermal therapist or cosmetic nurse, you need to understand how far you can take them and how successful your treatments will be over time.
So this is a big course to undergo. Some of them are over a year and some of them are longer. Usually people that undertake these courses are either working currently, and so flexibility while studying has become very important to learners, especially over the last couple of years. Why do you think it's crucial to incorporate flexibility within the courses? And really, what type of flexibility are students looking for these days?
Look, they're looking for enough flexibility to be able to juggle career, family and study. And as you just pointed out, life got tricky over the last few years. And when life gets tricky, we need to be able to move aspects of our lives around to fit in study and those other sorts of things that we want to do. And when things do go downhill, as in recent times, a lot of people will look at their careers and they'll look at maybe taking on a new career path. So, and they may already be working, and a lot of our students are already working. They're postgraduate when they're doing these courses. So flexibility of being able to do like one unit at a time, multiple units, or a full-time study load, it's completely up to them, and they can kind of move it around as much as they like.
Did you know that AACDS offers professional certificates in the field of dermal therapy and cosmetic nursing? These short courses are a perfect taster for those not sure if they want to take on a full formal qualification. What's great about AACDS professional certificates is that once you have completed your course, you will receive a digital badge to showcase your newly acquired skills. Contact AACDS today and mention the code ABIC10 to receive 10% off any professional certificate course. Visit www.aacds.edu.au today.
Flexibility these days is non-negotiable, and if you're not offering flexible education, you're at a greater risk of losing your students. They need to be in control of their own schedule.
So do you offer online portions of the course or in-person practical sessions as well?
Yeah, all of our theory units are, well, not all of them. In Perth and Queensland, we do offer a face-to-face option to study. but most of our students do choose online for its flexibility. So you can study at any time of the day or night they wish to and around whatever other commitments they have. The practical is always face-to-face, and we offer this in purpose-built cosmetic medical clinics. We believe it's extremely important for a student to work in a real clinical environment rather than a simulated environment. So they get to work with, other cosmetic doctors and nurses in a real clinical setting. And I think that's one of the key differences between our practical and a lot of other providers that we do offer it in clinic. And we offer a ratio of 2 students to 1 trainer and assessor, and that's to reduce the risk. Some of these procedures and treatments are high risk, therefore you need that adequate supervision, and they also do a number of case studies in their practical as well, so that they get to practice on enough patients to be able to feel confident when they leave us to go out there and actually do it themselves. So yes, definitely practical is always face to face, the theory is online.
The 2-to-1 ratio, that's exceptional. And I heard your rooms are absolutely gorgeous, and they're really custom built, state-of-the-art rooms. So yeah. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Look, a question we'd all like to know the answer to is, will there be any more changes for regulations for nurses in cosmetics and for dermal therapists, that matter?
Yes, well, I certainly think recently there has been a bit of a shake-up in the cosmetic medical industry, and not just for nurses, doctors as well. It is unregulated for doctors as it is for nurses and for dermal therapists. I think, the nurses have got AHPRA governing them, but I think cosmetic nursing has been not so much as a recognised field, nor has being a cosmetic doctor, it's not been such a recognised field. And we definitely have seen some changes happen recently. At the moment, it's just the enrolled nurses have been affected, and they have kind of been directed to do some education and to be working in the field for a couple of years before they venture into cosmetic nursing. And we've certainly had to make sure that anybody who enrolls with us that's an enrolled nurse understands the implications of that before they take on a course. Registered nurses, we know that's coming. And cosmetic doctors, we know there's a review underway at the moment about cosmetic procedures and who should be doing what within that realm, but it's probably a little bit too early to say exactly what that's going to look like because the review is underway at the moment. But we will see more regulation. It will be harder, and behind that regulation will be education for sure.
Can you tell us a little bit more about what's coming for RNs?
I think they'll be directed to do education. I think they will need a formal path of study, and I don't think the short courses will cut it for them. Now, the AHPRA puts out, I'm not sure whether it's AHPRA or the Nursing Federation that puts out the, what do they call it, a standard. At the moment, it is just a position statement. That's what they call it. It is just a position statement, but we do believe it will become the law. And you'd be highly advised to follow the position statement. Now, registered nurses have come a little bit later on, and they're talking about things like supervision. So it could be that as a registered nurse, you have to do a formal training course, and then you have to go under, not supervision, but mentorship is the word I'm looking for. So you need to have a mentor, and you need to do a certain amount of hours under the mentor. So we think that's something that's likely, but I don't have that crystal ball, unfortunately.
What do you think is going to happen with experienced nurses? Because there's so many experienced RNs that have been doing this for 10, 15 years. We had some very experienced ENs in the industry had to go back and prove or do their hours. Do you think there'll be any allowances for experience?
It appears that there has been, even for the ENs, it appears that they're already in industry, that it's just probably a matter of documenting or showing what you have done. it does seem to be a going forward thing. So anybody from now on, and I think it'll be the same for any type of regulation they put in place for any of the nurses, doctors. I think it will be as you go forward, but I do think you will have to demonstrate that you have that skill and knowledge.
Absolutely. And Linda, our final question, what trends do you think we will see in dermal and cosmetic education going forward?
Again, regulation, definitely there. There's been some recent misconduct, which has shed quite a negative light on those performing cosmetic medical procedures. And I think it's because there is no formal qualification, there is no formal pathway. It's some people do the 3-day course and go out there and practice, and other people are doing like our courses or other courses that are, full time for a year and are accredited courses, so they're a formal qualification. But overall, I think education, face-to-face and online, needs to be a lot more engaging. Recent times with COVID has shown us that, the online education is a useful type of education, but it needs to be, as I said, more engaging, interactive. But there's a lot of new tools as well that have come out that are more interactive. There's new platforms, but gone are the days, definitely gone are the days that you sit in a classroom and you watch a PowerPoint presentation. We're doing things like online chats, video streaming, lectures, doing support sessions, which, we've had to up our pace with because the students need that interaction to stay engaged. But things like your digital credentials are becoming really popular. We think in the future that that's going to replace your old-fashioned CV. We think that your employers are going to look at your online digital credential rather than a written CV, and that's actually probably more valid than a CV, which of course you can. Some people may choose to not be 100% honest with their CVs, but your digital credentials are credentials issued by educational institutes and can be, validated in that way. There's also micro-credentials, and we think right across the beauty and aesthetic industry that the micro-credentials are a thing and they're not going away. And it might be that you do little snippets and they make up a course, or it may be that they're non-accredited and that they're just that little snippet. And that, with the social media booming, that the actual online presence shows how good you are at something rather than that qualification. So I think that's a definite continuing trend. We have things like brow bars popping up, lash studios, pure waxing studios, all sorts of different specialties popping up. And you didn't need to do necessarily the whole course to become that expert in that area. You could pick bits and pieces. So I think education's in for a huge shake-up over the coming years. And I think the era of COVID and the continuing issues with the COVID situation will just accelerate it. I think it'll just happen a lot more quickly than it was going to before.
So much great information, Linda. It's always so wonderful speaking with you. Thank you so much for coming on our podcast today. And I'd also really like to thank you for being incredible ABIC members. You are so generous. You provide free memberships to all your students and graduates. And truly, you're doing such an amazing job at shaping the future of our industry. So thank you, Linda.
Thank you, Steph. It's lovely to talk to you again. And thanks for asking me.
You've reached the end of another episode of the Beauté by ABIC podcast, your online support community for the aesthetic and beauty industry. Thank you for listening, and until next time, stay connected.